There's a strange feeling that many people experience but rarely talk about. On paper, life looks fine. You're not in crisis. You have food, shelter, some stability, maybe even progress. And yet, somewhere underneath all of that, something feels off. You wake up without excitement. The days blur together. You're not sad enough to call it sadness, but not content enough to call it happiness. And what makes it worse is the guilt that follows. You tell yourself you should be grateful. You should feel happy. Nothing is technically wrong. So why does it feel like something is missing? This quiet dissatisfaction can make you feel broken, ungrateful, or even weak. But here's the truth most people never hear. This feeling is not a personal failure. It's not a lack of appreciation. And it's not because your life isn't good enough. It's a psychological mismatch between how the human mind works and how modern life is structured. And once you understand that mismatch, this confusing emptiness starts to make sense. To understand why happiness feels so unstable, you first have to understand what the human brain was built to do. Contrary to what we're taught, the brain's primary job is not to make you feel good. Its job is to keep you alive. For thousands of years, survival depended on constant alertness. The brain evolved to scan for danger, uncertainty, and problems, because noticing what was wrong mattered more than appreciating what was right. Even when things were calm, staying calm was risky. So the mind learned to look ahead, anticipate threats, and focus on what still needed fixing. Fast forward to modern life, and most real survival threats are gone. But the brain didn't update its software. It still operates as if something must always be improved, solved, or chased. This is why peace can feel uncomfortable and contentment feels temporary. When life is fine, the brain interprets that as a pause, not a destination. It starts searching for the next problem, the next goal, the next reason to feel uneasy. Not because something is wrong with your life, but because that's exactly how the human brain is wired to function. Even when something good finally happens, the feeling rarely lasts as long as we expect it to. A new achievement, a new routine, a new purchase, or a long-awaited milestone brings a brief sense of relief, sometimes even excitement. But slowly, almost quietly, that feeling fades. What once felt special becomes normal. This isn't because the experience lost its value, but because the mind adjusted to it. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, and it's one of the biggest reasons happiness feels so fleeting. The brain quickly recalibrates what normal feels like, raising the baseline and pushing you to want more. As soon as one desire is met, attention shifts to the next unmet one. The problem isn't that you're never satisfied. It's that satisfaction has an expiration date. This creates a cycle where you keep moving forward, expecting the next achievement to finally bring lasting happiness, only to feel strangely underwhelmed when you arrive. Over time, this pattern trains the mind to believe that happiness always lives just one step ahead, never in the present moment. Happiness doesn't disappear on its own. Very often, it's taken away by comparison. Even when your life is objectively fine, the mind rarely evaluates it in isolation. It measures it against others. And in today's world, that comparison happens constantly and unconsciously. You don't have to envy someone directly for the effect to take place. Simply being exposed to other people's highlights reshapes what your brain considers normal. Progress starts to feel slow. Stability starts to feel boring. And contentment starts to feel like falling behind. The mind isn't comparing reality to reality. It's comparing your everyday moments to someone else's edited outcomes. Over time, this shifts your internal standards upward, making your own life feel smaller than it actually is. Even joy becomes conditional. It only counts if it looks impressive. This is why you can feel unfulfilled while living a life you once dreamed of. Comparison doesn't make you want more because you're greedy. It makes you want more because it quietly rewrites what enough means. One of the most overlooked reasons happiness feels absent is not because life is bad, but because expectations are unrealistic. Many people grow up believing that happiness should feel intense, obvious, and constant. That once life is stable, the mind should feel light, motivated, and emotionally positive most of the time. But real emotional life doesn't work that way. Most days are neutral. Most moments are calm, not exciting. And calmness often gets misinterpreted as emptiness. When the mind expects happiness to feel like enthusiasm or pleasure, anything quieter than that feels like something is missing. This creates an internal conflict where you're doing fine, yet feel dissatisfied simply because your emotions don't match the version of happiness you were taught to expect. Over time, this gap between expectation and reality creates chronic disappointment. You're not unhappy because your life lacks value. You feel unhappy because your definition of happiness leaves no room for emotional neutrality, stillness, or rest. Another reason happiness feels distant is that many people rarely sit with their emotional state long enough to understand it. Instead of processing discomfort, the mind learns to drown it out. Distraction becomes the default response to any uneasy feeling. Endless scrolling, constant entertainment, busyness, and mental noise keep attention moving so emotions never fully surface. But avoided emotions don't disappear. They stay beneath the surface, quietly draining energy and clarity. Over time, this creates emotional numbness rather than relief. When everything is stimulating, nothing feels meaningful. The brain becomes so used to constant input that stillness feels uncomfortable, even threatening. In this state, happiness doesn't vanish dramatically. It fades quietly, not because life lacks meaning, but because emotional presence has been replaced by constant avoidance. Without space to feel, reflect, and process, even a good life can start to feel hollow. At some point, many people start actively chasing happiness, believing that if they just figure out the right mindset, routine, or habit, the feeling will finally lock into place. But this is where the paradox begins. The more closely you monitor your happiness, the more pressure you place on every moment to feel good. Ordinary days start to feel like failures. Neutral emotions feel like warning signs. Instead of living experiences, you evaluate them. And happiness, under constant inspection, tends to disappear. Psychologically, happiness works best as a byproduct, not a target. It emerges when attention is focused on meaningful action, connection, growth, or acceptance, not on how happy you feel while doing them. When happiness becomes a goal, dissatisfaction grows, because reality can never match the expectation of feeling good all the time. Ironically, letting go of the pursuit of happiness often creates the conditions where it can finally appear. If you've ever felt empty, restless, or quietly dissatisfied even when life is fine, it doesn't mean something is broken inside you. It means you're human. The mind you live with was designed to scan, adapt, compare, and anticipate, not to sit in permanent contentment. When you understand this, the self-judgment softens. You stop trying to force happiness and start noticing what's actually happening inside you. Happiness isn't always excitement or joy. Often, it's subtle. It looks like emotional steadiness, clarity, and the absence of constant inner conflict. It's the ability to be present without needing the moment to feel extraordinary. When you stop treating neutral moments as failures and stop assuming something is missing, life begins to feel fuller on its own. Not because everything changed, but because your understanding did.